Hello, 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 and welcome to Updog Sports Talk. And my name is Matt Miller. We may have another live show going right now, Justin.
Oh, are we live again?
I think we're live. I think we're live a second time. So yeah, if you're back joining us, we just finished our FCS talk, and now we are going to FIFA talk. So Justin, you are here, yes. Tony, you're our soccer guy. Can you tell us what we're talking about today?
Yes, you know what? And this is one of those stories that is personal, but it raised the bigger question. And I just checked; we're not live on YouTube, but we are live on X. So Cincinnati, we broke into the MLS. This is actually our 10th year of professional, soccer between the USL and the MLS. And so, there's a really big, kind of soccer culture that was, cultivated and built. And we're always pitching to, FIFA and, the World Cup. Hey, soccer lives in Cincinnati. Bring your people here. So, it was the Club World Cup is going on right now. It's sponsored by FIFA. There's 32 teams, and TQL actually hosted three of the matches. Now it's in the group stage. None that were, all that competitive, or where both teams were really competitive. But the first one was Bayern Munich and Auckland. Auckland is an Australian league, and the score ended up being 10-0. So by soccer's standards, bit of a bloodbath, but one of the quotes that I saw from the goalie was, soccer is actually, he has two jobs. He works at I think is a veterinary warehouse, and, he's a supervisor, and he's like, I had to take, unpaid time off just to be able to go. But there's no way that I wouldn't do that to play with the legends of, Bayern Munich, and, they're playing, Dortmund, or maybe not. Maybe I'm confusing the two groups, but, it turned out to be a really good, pretty decent turnout. I think there's about 82% of the stadium was filled. And, if you've been following along, any soccer stuff, there's been a lot of criticisms about how few seats are filled in these, Club World Cup. And for those who may not know what the Club World Cup is, it's basically the World Cup, but instead of countries, it's teams. So, you got the PSGs and the Inter Miamis, and, Man City is in there. So these are supposed to be some of the best clubs in the world. And so, I was actually able to attend a game. It was the second of the three. The third is happening presently. It's probably wrapping up, actually. But it was Borussia Dortmund, and they were playing the Mamelodi Sundowns, which I had to look them up. They're a South African team.
What part of South Africa?
Couldn't tell you. But what I do know about them is they had a pretty good supporter section. But when I looked at their league to see how competitive it was to the Bundesliga, which, it's different. It's different. The Bundesliga is definitely one of the more higher powered, what do you call them, leagues out there. But, the Sundowns, they absolutely massacred the rest of the table. They had a plus 52 goal differential. They only had allowed like 14 goals the entire season. So they were a lockdown, the best of the best in that league. So, I was really hoping for a good match, but, it's been really hot here in Cincinnati. We're looking at friggin', the ninth circle of hell here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, I will give it that the weather could have been a factor, but the official attendance was 4,000. The stadium holds about 26,000. So, it was about 55% capacity by the numbers. Visually, probably less than that. There was much less than that, actually.
Well, let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
If we're backing up to the beginning of this, what if somebody who's watching this doesn't really follow any soccer worldwide? So the FIFA,
Like me.
Yeah, like Justin, who's probably never heard of any soccer team in his life. Are these soccer teams? These soccer teams are from all over the world.
Yep.
And-
Yep.
Go ahead.
No, each country can only have two. The host country can have three, and so there's some controversy about who that third spot went to. But yeah, they try to really grab the best talent from each, kind of each continent. So Africa's represented, Asia's represented, of course, Europe and, the US. So they really did try to be very fair and highlight different clubs in different countries.
So we talked about the transfer market in our last video and how big of a role that plays, and like how you can just during certain windows just give a team a bunch of money and negotiate a contract with a player. So how do we know if we're getting the best teams if these players are moving around? Is it based on last year's standings? Is it based on current standings? Like, how are these teams chosen?
And that's an excellent point. You're already all over it. So, one of the controversies of this cup has been so they look at a 4-year window. So from it would have been 2021 to now, and they select the team that has the best like aggregate record. So, Supporters Shield winner, they won their league. And, I think some of the teams did get snubbed, from a Premier League perspective. I root for Liverpool, and, they've done some great things the last couple years. And, even though, Man City won last year, we won this year. So, I think there were some clubs that maybe got excluded based on their selection criteria. But, on the other hand, like I said, they really did try to be as impartial and, as quantitative as possible. I mentioned, Inter Miami. And so obviously that's where Messi plays. Suarez plays there. It's kind of the cash cow of the MLS, if we're being honest. And so, they just started as a team not that long ago. This might be their 4th or 5th year. So in the, first 2-3 years, they were kind of garbage. And then they got Messi, and then the magic started to happen. So there's a lot of talk of this being kind of a cash grab where, the FIFA said, oh, we don't really care which teams are, participating. We just want the ones that are going to bring in the most audience. So I know that there's kind of a balance to that where, optics and, they're in it to make money. Of course, there's other things, other goals and other ways to go about it. So it's been interesting. Do you want to jump into the, kind of how it's looking big picture?
Yeah. So one thing you were starting to get at though, so you let us know that some big teams have gotten here. Some good turnouts have happened. Some bad turnouts have happened. We talked about it a little bit in our last episode that you and I did. So I'll let you finish that thought with that. So, like, is there a reason why some of these turnouts, like, is it advertising? Is it just people in America don't like soccer? Is it just because it's random times? Like, what's going on here?
I think it's a multitude of factors, right? The time of year in the United States, we're into summer. It's officially summer. So, you play in California and you play in Florida and you play across the expanse of the United States. You're going to run into some weather. And, some of the warmer climate countries or clubs that participated, that may not bother them. But, the UK and don't appreciate the warm weather. So I think there's a few factors. There's the weather piece, the scheduling of it. A lot of the games are in the middle of a day, on a Monday afternoon, and people work around here. So
yeah, so, like, what makes them select these times? Like, what was their strategy behind it?
I think they were just trying to condense it down, because the MLS is in season right now. So FC Cincinnati, who's playing right now, actually up 2-0.
Yeah.
They've had to balance the club and their schedule, and then they targeted some of the bigger stadiums, right? Like the Hard Rock in Miami, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. That one was actually very well attended. Actually, Matt, do you want to pull up that chart with the? I think it's in Italian, but we can still explain it.
Yeah,
so, like, what made them select the summertime? Like, are they trying to get in these big venues while football's not going on?
In that bit, I'm not too sure on. They've kind of tried to sandwich it between the in-season and out-of-season clubs, because not every team, globally, not every team is on the same schedule. And so, trying to balance that. The other thing that's going on right now is the Gold Cup, which is where, the US plays a bunch of different North American and South American countries. So Matt and I discussed that in our last soccer talk. Just about how the players are receiving it, and even in this tournament, Seattle Sounders, they rallied their player association and said, "Hey, this is nonsense, dude. We're in the middle of the season. There's going to be fatigue. You're adding in this tournament and you're expecting people to play, and it's too much." So yeah,
what even is the incentive for a team like that's in the middle of the season to play in this? What is their incentive?
I'll tell you. So the prize pool, I had it written down. I want to say it's 1 billion, but that sounds crazy. But that's a huge incentive, and that's what I work in compensation. I know that a big payout at the end delivers the behavior that you want. So they want the clubs to participate, they want the fan bases involved, so that they can, make some money out of it too. But the purse at the end of the tournament is pretty large.
And this all goes to
they're,
one
they're
team,
chasing
or
the bag a little bit.
does this all go to one team, or is it like a Ohio State Big Ten thing where like that team gets a chunk of the money, but then it gets dispersed through the rest of the league?
That's a great question, and one that I hadn't thought about.
Sorry, I come with
I could
the zingers.
Yeah, so it's the total prize money pool is 1 billion with 525 allocated to participation, and then 475 million for performance-based awards. So it's those performance-based rewards that you're like, is that just going to, the Mbappes and the Messis, to kind of sweeten the pot for them to participate.
And like getting off of that for a second, and with ADHD probably never coming back, but if we're looking at FIFA putting this together, do they like collude with MLS to put this whole show together here, or is it more of like a FIFA tries to do their research and figure out best times and all that, and then leaves the league out of it?
They probably don't confer too much with the league, only because they're dealing with, the MLS, the EPL, the Bundesliga, all these different leagues. So if I had to guess, I would say they probably don't, they don't take too much into consideration. But, I think the bigger picture for this is, the Club World Cup hosted in America 2025. The World Cup, where all the countries are going to be playing, that's next year in 2026. So I think this was almost kind of a pre-show or a dress rehearsal for the World Cup to see what the attendance will be. And as I've thought about it, even though it's a similar format where you're dealing with different countries and different teams, you're more likely to draw the international market for the country, not a club. Just because, as you divide down, they're in the country, whatever team they're a part of. But that's one of the big questions for me is, how is this a precursor to the World Cup in 2026? Are we going to be seeing, like the Ulsan and Mamelodi at 13% capacity? That's to me, that's an issue that if I'm FIFA that I'm looking into. Like I said, there's a lot of factors, and if we look at the the attendance, and like I said, this is in think Italian, but I like the way that it laid it all out. 12 or 8 of the 12 stadiums hold more than 60,000 people. So these aren't small stadiums. TQL holds about 26,000. And I'd say that that's about typical for what you'd find at an MLS specific stadium. And so, with Inter Miami in the first match, FIFA basically subsidized tickets for people to get in and to participate. So I think, that 94% looks nice, but they also had to chip in some of their coin to achieve that number.
And if we know anything about FIFA, they went through a whole scandal about coins before. One thing, so if you don't know, FIFA is located in Zurich, Switzerland. Switzerland does things a lot differently than we do. So, you'd think that FIFA would either do their due diligence and find out, okay, LA, we can do this at whatever time. People are going to show up, it's LA. But let's take a look at Cincinnati. Most people in Cincinnati work 9 to 5 remote. In America, most of those companies that allow us to work here don't give a whole lot of vacation time, and a lot of people want to use that for going to Florida or whatever. So do you think that FIFA could have done a better job and been like, hey, let's not do a random 3 o'clock Wednesday kickoff. Why don't we push it to 7 o'clock? Maybe be like, okay, we have a couple of big events. I know after a while it becomes to be a lot because then you're fighting with MLB, you're fighting with other leagues. But in Cincinnati, for example, you'd think that there would be one person who would, or a group of people to step up and be like, hey, why don't we put these games at these times? Let's put them on these days because we got big Reds matchups going on. Whereas New York, you could probably get away with a game on a weekend in New Jersey or whatever. I feel there's a couple of things that they could have done differently. And one thing that I wish they would have done, and probably planned on talking about this later, marketing. When you think Super Bowl, when you think World Series, NBA Finals, it's marketed so much that no matter if you're watching Hallmark, if you're watching Cartoon Network, if you're watching any of the regional networks, it's all over. If you're watching YouTube, if you pull up a video on Facebook, there's an ad for it. I feel like FIFA could have dumped some of their coin into marketing specifically to get this to be like, hey guys, we know you don't like soccer, but do you like doing things? Do you want to get out of your house and not be a fat American? Here's the thing that you can do.
I'm glad that you mentioned it too, because I had no idea this was going on, so I wasn't sure if it was just me not knowing soccer or if they just didn't advertise this at all.
They did. I think they did, but they did too late. They started advertising. There's billboards in Cincinnati, but to the casual fan, they set the price too high to gain interest. A lot of the ticket prices were higher than what you would see for an international friendly, bringing the European leagues. That just the tickets that the price point that FIFA was targeting just kind of precluded the casual fan. Like you, Justin, and even if you looked at all the different names on here, a lot of them.
Look at the second one there with 20% attendance in Cincinnati. I'm seeing those names, and those are doing nothing for me. I have no clue where even are those.
But what's funny is I actually work right next to the hotel that every single one of those teams that came to Cincinnati, and there's another list with a bunch more teams. But all the teams that came through Cincinnati, I work around where the hotel is at, and I could see all the teams coming and going all day long. And it was really cool. But what's weird is they get a random coach and they put a random rap on it, but they only put it on one bus. And then they bus them all together, and it's okay, there's the team, but who's the other 3 buses?
It's the designated survivor approach.
Yeah. And then,
one for the goalie, one for...
Yeah, for real. But other than them blocking off the street, I didn't know they were coming. I work down there. I've heard of Pachuca and Salzburgo. Well, Salzburg. I've heard of those teams, and that's only because I play FIFA. One of my complaints about overseas teams is if you're an international sport, wouldn't you want one website that everybody from around the world go to get gear? Maybe offer a discount to people who are far away that would have had to pay $80 in shipping. I want a Blackpool hoodie, okay? I can't find a Blackpool hoodie. Like, I think if they would have, I'm not in logistics. I am nowhere near logistics. I know people who are. They're way smarter at me than that. But I feel like there could have been representatives from FIFA to come to each of the cities that were designated hosts. Come up with a schedule, a specific schedule, not like a random Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon kind of game. Like no one in Cincinnati is going to that. Yes, we look at it as another thing to do, and we're a passionate city when it comes to soccer, but that's not feasible for a lot of us. I don't want to have to take vacation time. I don't want to have to call in sick. I don't want to have to do a lot of things to just get to this game. So if they're able to figure out with the cities of, hey, you guys put on events all the time. What is the best time that we're going to be able to get some of these people to go? And then structure it that way. Did a lot better marketing. Been like, hey, here's an opportunity that none of you really have a chance to do. Here is a chance to watch a world sport on a big stage with big incentives. Come see us play. We're not your American football. We're not your NBA. We're not one of your big five or big four in America. But come watch us. I think we'll put on a show. If they did something like that, and maybe took some of that $1 billion and moved it over to maybe paying down ticket prices. Maybe paying off some of these stadiums, make it easily accessible. Because one thing that you'll get fans of really quick is if your tickets are cheap at a time that's easily accessible, and you just throw it in someone's face 1,000 times.
And the beer is cold.
Yes. I think if they did all of that, this would have turned out a lot better. Maybe when we get closer to the final, once it starts getting out of our realm, maybe we'll start seeing better times. I didn't even see them on TV. Like, I don't know what's going on with all that, but if they want soccer to thrive here in America, they're going to want to choose times that work for the people in America.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And the reason why you haven't seen anything about it is because FIFA had when they were looking to select their provider, they had chats with Apple TV. Apple wanted to pay, $1 billion to be the exclusive host of it. But they wanted $4 billion, which is insane.
Yeah.
So, that deal kind of fell apart. And so it's actually now on DAZN. I've never heard of it. Yeah.
DAZN.
DAZN, yeah.
Pat McAfee was on there for a little bit, so that's the only reason why we heard of it. But I think because you come to America, what are the biggest companies? Amazon, Apple, Google. You could find a way to make this work with any of the, well, Apple turned them down, but like Amazon or Google or whatever, you can find someone to take this. You could put it live on YouTube during our show, and that would be a fantastic place. Almost everybody in at least the United States has a YouTube.
Yeah.
It's accessible everywhere. That would have been the perfect spot. You make it free. Google has their own algorithm to take cuts of this. You make enough money, Google makes enough money, everybody's happy. Amazon puts on free NFL games on Thursday nights during the season. Don't know why they wouldn't be able to do this. But if you make it more accessible to everybody in the world to watch on one platform, you instantly open up your opportunities. And then you market it. You use Google to market it for you. You use Apple to market it for you. You use Amazon to market it for you. You get multi-million-dollar ad agencies to market it for you. You tell some random soccer fan who's a diehard FC Cincinnati guy to say, hey, soccer's coming here. You're a season ticket holder. Be on the lookout for this. It's a great opportunity. They're going to go tell 12 of their friends.
Yep. And if tickets are cheap enough, they're going to bring them too. You'll pack the stadium.
And then you won't just pack the stadium, you'll pack outside the stadium. Because if these stadiums are set up enough, correctly, you could just put a giant TV or put section of people who can't get into the stadium in a different part. Like here in Cincinnati, the Banks, there's a big TV on the Reds Hall of Fame that they could have used to show the games. You could put people in the Paul Brown Stadium to watch the thing as long as the Bengals aren't practicing there. Like, you have a lot of different options to make this work, especially for small markets. And it's like FIFA and most of the other leagues are like, okay, Americans don't care about soccer. We'll prove them right. We'll put them at times that we would have them, and then say, you know what? You guys don't deserve soccer.
This is kind of your classic case of they didn't understand their market at all with this.
Yeah, and I know it's a relatively new tournament, so that there could be kinks that they're fixing to work out, but people are already on to FIFA. Matt, if you want to pull up that picture from TQL with the banner. So people are already on. They're already on to him, right? And during the Bayern Munich Auckland match, they brought in a banner, and so this was televised. FIFA was probably sweating it, and so 10 years, our Al Lock. I don't know if that's how you say it. World football is more poorly governed than before. Smash FIFA. And so I didn't really understand the context of that, so I looked it up. 10 years ago, FIFA executives were arrested for corruption in Bauer Alak. So people are on to him. You have a reputation. You need to start repairing that. The reputational damage will follow you, and that'll, just from a business perspective, that will hit your pocketbook. So, maybe it's people being salty, but,
So that was a big thing that made waves into every sports fan's atmosphere. In some way, shape, or form, all of us heard of something about it. Whether you were just like, hey, something happened in FIFA a while ago, I don't remember what it was, all the way to knowing the penny of what they were fined. But it's not just FIFA getting in the way of this. It's politics. So here in the United States, we have a lot going on, whether you lean left, whether you lean right, whether you agree, whether you disagree. These politics are getting in the way of sports. Politics have always done that. And it's a shame. But you have ICE agents going into stadiums and taking fans out of the stadium and deporting them for just wanting to watch their team. One such example happened at a Dodgers game. The Dodgers actually refused to let them in, saying it was private property and they couldn't do anything. And they argued a bunch of other stuff. But they ended up getting the person they needed after, but it was a whole thing. I don't think that if you think someone is going to harm other people, that they should be able to just hang out in the stadium and watch their team. But, you're also disrupting the fan experience because of politics. And unless you have proof of specific threats or whatever, maybe not touch a game. Maybe just let it go, handle it quietly. You don't need to be all in your face about it. Most of America is under a heat advisory right now. So, as you alluded to earlier, Tony, heat was a big factor. A lot of these fans that get some travel time, you can look at some people from the UK. I think the high is usually in the 70s. Like, the highest of highs is usually in the 70s. So when they come over here and it's like 99 degrees with a heat index of 110, they're going to be like, screw this, I'm never coming back here. This is the worst experience of all time. Why? How do people live like that? I mean, nothing you can do about the weather unless you're into conspiracies and you think the government has a thing in that, but that's a conversation for a different channel. Misters in the stands, putting mist to cool the fans off or whatever, doing something to help these fans. Because Tony, you went to a couple matches.
Yeah.
Did they do anything for you?
No. I almost feel like, these stadiums, when it gets to a certain temperature, you should be giving out free water bottles. You don't want people going down in your stands. You don't want heat stroke. Of course you can sell all the beer you want. It's probably not medically advised when it's super hot out, but, at least provide water. And at TQL, it's about $5 a bottle. So, that adds up on a hot. It was kind of funny when we were at TQL on Saturday watching the Dortmund Sundowns match, and we look over and we only see one bench full. The other bench was empty, and we're like, the heck is that? We've never seen that. Turns out Dortmund was watching the first half from the locker room, and it's because it was 87 degrees out. So I've never run for 90 minutes real hard in 90-degree weather, but I don't know that 87 is where I would call it,
Yeah, I mean, You and I played football. We had to do 2 days in the middle of August when it's 110 with a heat index of 120. You have a coach yelling at you, saying, do more. And then just being like, hey, man, like maybe get some water or something.
Yeah.
Like, but it's never enough. 87 to us in those conditions, that would have been a break for 2 days.
Yeah.
But like I said before, to a lot of fans, a lot of people aren't from here, aren't used to these kind of climates. If you live in the tip top of the Alps, you're not going to really get used to 110 degrees with humidity.
No, not in a week's time, you know. However long they're here before it starts, you ain't going to get used to it that quickly.
I mean, NASCAR does it well. NASCAR has Bud Light booths, and they have ice buckets in the Bud Light booths. When it gets down low enough, you could bring your towel up there, they'll dunk it in, and then you could just throw it on the back of your neck, cool down, call it 10, 15 minutes, and then go back. But I agree with you. If they don't want to do free, that's fine, but give it heavily discounted because you don't want fans passing out. It's a bad one.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Luckily, TQL is a type of stadium that does have the shade over the stands.
Yes.
But when the sun's coming in at different times, certain people are roasting, certain people are comfortable. So it's something's got to be figured out in making the fan experience better for the people who aren't from here. But do you have any thoughts? Are you happy with how everything turned out? Are you mad with how everything turned out? We went over a few things of how we could fix it, but what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, and I've seen the pictures of, where was it? I can't remember. There was 90 people at the game for these two clubs. That is embarrassing. Specifically for Cincinnati, I was actually pretty disappointed with the crowd. Granted, it was hot. It was super hot. But, for the World Cup, we were one of the last final, places to host the World Cup. Real World Cup matches, it could be France, it could be whoever. And so, they chose another site based on our infrastructure, not enough hotels and, all those things. But
well, yeah, also we only have one bridge that brings you in from Kentucky. That we probably need more.
Yeah.
Unless you want to go around town, which that's another option.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. We ended up losing the bid, I think, to Kansas City.
Which is embarrassing in itself. Not saying Kansas City's terrible. They have really good food, but if you've ever been to Kansas City and you're used to bigger cities, more to do, more tightly compact, you would probably be rather disappointed with Kansas City. Cincinnati has been behind the curve on everything. When it comes to, there was not a Final Four, but I think it was a first round thing that they were trying to do with college basketball. They had us have it. And then they pulled it from Cincinnati and go, Louisville deserves this because they have a better everything. And I would agree. We don't have a good arena. We don't have a lot of stuff right there. But once should have been a wake-up call. We're on to 3 or 4 times this happening. So that's
snubbed.
Embarrassing. Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.
It says we don't care about the sport. We don't care about adding money to the area. We don't care about the small businesses in the area. Maybe they have a plan, but every time it seems like they have a plan, someone else comes into office and wrecks it. The Duke Energy Center is going to be super awesome. The hotel that's going to go in there is going to be super awesome. We're going to get a lot because of that. There is talks on the table for a new arena. There's talks to put a bunch of hotels over by the TQL Stadium. So it's like they're making moves. But wouldn't you want to have the foresight to be hey, maybe we can get something like this,
Yeah, maybe make it happen first. I think at this point, all these different sports are kind of just being hey, you're saying you're going to do this, but, I mean, you've gone for this thing now and this thing, and you keep saying you're going to do this, but we're looking at you, and it's just not happening. You don't have the hotels to host all these people. You only have one interstate that goes into the city. It's
Two,
just
technically,
stuff like
they
that.
come to one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Why do we combine them? We should have a bridge for 71 and 75 instead of combining them through on the same bridge. I mean, not without going too far, Tony knows the story. I was at a wedding this weekend, and there were important people that were late to the wedding because we only had one bridge that goes out in and out of the city.
Yeah.
So
Luckily, they are spending like $2 billion putting a bridge adjacent to it that should help the flow of traffic. So maybe in 10 years, 20 years, it'll be easier to get in and out of the city.
maybe we'll finally get an NCAA tournament game in 20 years.
How many opportunities are we going to waste?
Yeah.
Build it and they will come, and
and-
they haven't because we
And
haven't.
it's not just Cincinnati. When you look at, like, Orlando has good stuff going on, but they already know they're not going to get fans to show up. And that proved that recently. New York, most of the time, like, you if you do it right, you can get fans. But if you don't do it at all or don't do it wrong, no one's going to show up. LA is like the only one that you can put anything anywhere and everyone's going to show up.
Yeah. Especially like LA, I mean, they can support 2 professional soccer teams, They have the El Trafico.
Well,
yeah.
two soccer teams, 2 American football teams, 2 baseball teams, 2 basketball teams. Like, there's such a big city that has so much going on and people working random schedules that they can have these people do that. But the rest of the country, especially in the heart of America, most people are working 9 to 5, getting 2 weeks of vacation a year with sick time included in those 2 weeks. Like,
It's hard to justify.
yeah, and like there should be more to work, but everything has to go on. Like, you have to keep going. But corporate greed gets in the way. Then people start taking advantage of stuff like that. Like, when you give them a little bit of leeway, they take a mile and start abusing it. So then, like, where's the fine line in that? I'm not going to come up with that. I'm not even going to try. But I can at least say that there's a problem there. And so looking at a lot of these cities and seeing that it's a reoccurring problem, you wouldn't run into that in London. You wouldn't run into that even going north into Nottingham, into Blackpool, into some of the smaller cities out there. You wouldn't run into any of these issues.
It makes me think back to the World Cup that happened a couple years ago. I'm pretty sure they built stadiums in the desert for this specifically. And they were some of the nicest stadiums you'll ever see, So, like, that's the investment that I think is missing. Like, at least from a soccer perspective, I don't know. I'd like to think that we'll get there. And, I'm cautiously using this as, a barometer of how people are feeling about soccer. I think there's a lot of other things that are kind of getting in the way of it really being a true indicator of whether people are interested in soccer here or not. But, I mean, it raises the questions of, what is FIFA going to take away from this? Are they going to look at the United States like they're blacklisted? We're not going to host anything there ever again because, we didn't make money. And, does all of that criticism then, kind of poison the well of what American soccer is? Because now, we're talking about it. We're, really looking at it and analyzing it. And, to the casual fans, they may be like, dude, soccer's whack, and that's a disservice to the sport and, to all the professionals that play it. So
Well,
it's a complicated issue.
if you take the leagues away, you take everything above the manager of a team away, and you just look at the game itself. It is one of the most purest sports out there. They played it so long that it's perfect. There's not much you can change. When you start going up the ladder, once you start adding rungs to that ladder, it gets, I don't know what word to say, but like
Complex. Yeah.
I was
It's
going to go a lot
complexity.
more harsh, but yes, it is complex. But like FIFA, that scandal that happened, people see that and they're like, why do I want to support an organization that's doing all that? That they don't have any bearing over here, but people look at it the same. It's the same sport. So people are like, okay, well, that sport's ruined. People
Yeah.
look at, like, when I was going over on our last episode on soccer, I was going over comparing it to MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL. Like, I love baseball. I think baseball's another very pure sport, but adding rungs to the ladder gets in the way. A lot of decisions are being made in MLB, pulling it from greatness to middle of the pack. And that is a way that MLS can get back into the sports race. But then nobody can compete with the NFL because it's so entertaining. But as Justin and I have talked about before, NFL is starting to lose its storylines. So maybe another team, maybe MLS can come up with better storylines to present to people, market it better.
It's the narrative.
Yeah. So
That's
if
what
you-
gets the people going.
Yeah, and if you run with the narrative that the NFL has been pushing their star players for so long, the NBA has been pushing all of their players so long. The was pushing steroids for so long. Hockey's not marketed very well, but hockey is stable. Whereas NBA, MLS, MLB, they're not that stable. If NHL, if hockey had, I think hockey has a similar FIFA thing because enough countries play it. If they had that here, there would be outstanding attendance.
Yeah.
Indoors, but at the end of the day, something needs to change to give this beautiful sport more recognition.
Yep.
There's no reason why we can't have MLS competing with Premier League someday. Like, Premier League is marketed so well. Remember when it was the EFL Championship when we were like that high?
Yeah.
And then that was the best league, and then they added the Premier League because so many teams were too dominant. Like, we could have that system here, and we talked about that last episode.
Yeah.
At this point, we can go on and on with our frustrations, but I think this might be a good place to stop before we get too deep into it and just spewing frustrations. Justin, do you have any takeaways on this?
Oh boy, this is a loaded conversation here. I know, I'm the kind of person that they're trying to reach right now, and like their marketing of the whole thing, like they have not scratched the surface yet. They have not even scratched the surface of getting someone like me to get involved, and yeah, you just wonder how that's going to keep going. Are they going to give up because their efforts are failing, or what are we going to see there? It'll be an interesting development to keep an eye on, to say the least.
Tony, you and I have covered quite a bit here, but any parting thoughts?
No. It's been a great dialogue on the state of soccer, and I see a lot of overlap with the MLS, some of their issues that they've had reaching audiences, and then this is just that on a higher level. So I think it'll be interesting to see. We know the talents here in America. Probably the most athletic. I don't know. Probably have the best athletes in the world. Maybe, I don't know. But
I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah, I mean, just bigger, faster, stronger. That's the emphasis. That's America. So there is the talent, there is the potential. They just need to inspire the interest, and then
it's all about marketing.
Yep.
If you want to join the conversation, you can feel free to find our replay of this video on X, and feel free to comment. Tell us your thoughts. Tell us how you would fix it. Tell us anything about this. We are growing on the MLS side of things, so we're trying to get a little bit more of a following going. Follow us at Updog Sports Talk on X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Find us wherever you listen to your podcast. Obviously, we're live on YouTube, and we are on Reddit now. So if you want to join the conversation, we have opened r/Updog Sports Talk. There's a place for anybody to go to talk about anything sports related. Just no politics and no hate. That's all we ask. Well, that is it. Appreciate you guys for talking about this. And we'll catch everybody in the fall, assuming we figure out how to just record next time. This was a spur-of-the-moment accidental live video. So next time we're going to see if we can get this recorded and then just get it out to you whenever. But we will market it.
And don't say we never did nothing for you. Surprise live.
Yes.
Yeah, surprise live episode, second one.
We'll see you guys.
See ya.